The American president just made statements that there's going to be an end to the war in Gaza soon, and that he will not be allowing Benjamin Netanyahu to annex the West Bank, whether he did or did not speak with Benjamin Netanyahu. More leaks are coming out now about the meeting that Donald Trump had with leaders of Arab and Muslim states in relation to the ceasefire in Gaza, and more details about the clauses are being released as well. However, Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the UN General Assembly showed nothing but more stubbornness from Benjamin Netanyahu. As a matter of fact, it was criticized heavily in the Israeli media, saying it was very gimmicky, full of speeches that are only for his Israeli base, and that Israel is facing a catastrophe on the international scene, that Israel is being isolated and on its own. Let's begin with what Donald Trump had to say, and then we'll take it from there.
Did you promise leaders this week that you would not allow Israel to annex the West Bank? Is that something that you
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
Did you speak with Netanyahu about this?
Yeah, but I'm not going to allow it. Whether I spoke to him or not, I did. But I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now, okay?
So the American president is very clear. It's enough. That's it. We need to end all of this war. And also Benjamin Netanyahu will not be able to annex the West Bank. However, Benjamin Netanyahu had a speech, and seeing as this speech is coming so close with these statements coming from Donald Trump, you would have assumed that this speech would include anything like ending the war, peace prospect, something of the sort. This is, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu at the UN General Assembly, because most of them left. Those who remained there were part of the cheerleading group that Benjamin Netanyahu orchestrated, so they can clap after several new statements for him. But in that speech, he was regurgitating the same Zionist propaganda in a very desperate manner. Benjamin Netanyahu is appearing to be weaker than before. He is on the defensive 24/7, trying to portray everything that is happening against Israel as if it's some sort of a plan that is being targeted, Israel's being targeted with, because of misinformation on social media, or because there are certain countries opposing Israel, and that's why they're brainwashing people. As a matter of fact, he's saying that some of the countries that are verbally criticizing Israel are actually saying that no, Israel is doing the dirty job for us and they need to continue. But it wasn't even convincing for the Israeli crowd. This is one of the articles that were released in Israel Without Hope, with a quiz. Netanyahu's speech was built for applause, but the world no longer wants to listen. Other articles were being published in Israel about this speech of Benjamin Netanyahu and how pathetic it was, full of empty words, empty promises. And also Benjamin Netanyahu was asking in that speech for the world to understand that they need to end Hamas in Gaza. They need to continue and finish the job. And he is bringing certain statements like, oh, well, the United States, before they would target any regime they didn't like, or that posed a threat against them, why are all of you like criticizing Israel? Nothing that Benjamin Netanyahu mentioned in that speech showed any openness or any willingness to accept any sort of proposal in a ceasefire. In recent months, Benjamin Netanyahu made statements that made people think that, hold on a second, there is hope, by the statements and by certain actions like meeting with some of his fiercest critics inside of Israel. All of that came simultaneously at the time with statements from Donald Trump that the war is about to end and we're getting very close. But nothing materialized. We're still where we are, and no progress has been made whatsoever in relation to the ceasefire. What are the prospects of anything happening differently this time? Is there something substantiated, or is it all talk again? According to several reports, Donald Trump, of course, met with some of the Arab and Muslim leaders on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, and he was also talking to them about the day after inside of the Gaza Strip, and he came up with certain proposals. Not all of the details were released, and there are also conflicting reports about these details, but what we understand generally from them is that, well, Israel is going to gradually withdraw from Gaza. They are going to take Hamas's rule down, and they want to disarm Gaza. But then again, other reports weren't very clear on the disarmament part too. An international force is going to be inside of the Gaza Strip as well. And also there was one interesting piece of information coming out about this in relation to Tony Blair, none other than Tony Blair. Tony Blair is going to be leading this transition government, and he is going to be leading it not from Gaza but from Al Arish in Egypt for approximately 5 years, up until they hand it back to a Palestinian authority afterwards. This was one of the articles that were posted on the Middle East Eye, proposed as Chief of Gaza Transitional Authority. Now, if you wanted any sort of example about the fact that Israel is a neo-colonialist entity planted there by force, by a Western establishment, against the will of the people, then this report here and this confirmation confirms and verifies everything. Tony Blair, a wolf in sheep's clothing, a man in charge of massacring millions of people in brutal wars that his own people were against, a man that the British people would spit at if they see him in the streets, being proposed as the chief of Gaza for the day after from Al Arish, in Egypt, right? And this man even holds the position of an advisor to some of the Arab establishments too. That's what it's all about. Tony Blair representing Zionism and this neo-colonialist entity for financial purposes, overseeing things, and everything is around money and protecting Israel, nothing related to the Palestinian people. And the fact that this name is even coming here is absurd. Tony Blair, this man was sent as a peace envoy to the Middle East previously, and he was talking about peace prospects and trying to reach solutions and peace between countries after him being in charge of the war in Iraq and killing so many people in the region. And now they want to put him in Gaza so that he can do what exactly in Gaza? So that he can prepare for the next massacre that Israel is going to be talking about and preparing for the Palestinian people. Israel, on the other hand, gave us some interesting information. The Israeli Broadcasting Authority was actually saying Israel is considering granting immunity to Hamas officials as part of ending the war. Usually, whenever there's a war between Israel and Gaza, Israel would outright declare and give confirmations that they will not be targeting Hamas leaders in Gaza. As a matter of fact, when the temporary ceasefire happened in January, we saw the armed wing of Hamas going out in the streets and several of the military leaders out in the streets without Israel targeting them. Part of an agreement. So that happened before. However, they never stated that now in the recent genocide They only said that they want to kill all of them and they want to eliminate and wipe off Hamas. But now, Israeli officials are saying that, well, one of them, an Israeli official, explained, there needs to be something there that is relevant to the organization's leadership. And mind you, they themselves are also in conflict with their own statements. Sometimes they'll tell you they only gave that confirmation to the leadership outside of Gaza, but here they confirm that no, the Hamas leadership in Gaza and outside of Gaza after the war. That means this is on the table, and it's on the table purely because, well, the Palestinian side isn't going to be agreeing to anything imposed on them without certain measures and certain red lines being met, certain demands in relation to the Gaza Strip and Israeli withdrawal and all of the requirements of the Gaza Strip. But all of this is in the realm of talks. Talks and talks and talks and reports. We have seen nothing materialize. Donald Trump is more interested in his own interest, in his own selfish things rather than anything related to ending wars. Donald Trump showed very clearly that during the toughest times and when it was very, very important for him to apply pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, he did not, and he failed. And now he's coming up with certain statements to show some sort of authority. However, Netanyahu is showing no willingness whatsoever. Netanyahu's speech at the UN showed that the man is continuing up until the end, and there are no indications that Israel is going to reach any sort of ceasefire or that Donald Trump is going to force something that Benjamin Netanyahu will accept. We saw the contrary. We saw Donald Trump submitting to the pressure, and you can say extortion maybe, or blackmailing of Benjamin Netanyahu with this continued support of the United States. The United States is vetoing ceasefires. They are continuously funding and supporting and arming Israel, and they have taken no significant measures to force Israel to stop its genocide inside of the Gaza Strip.